to the episode of The Decision Layer. This is presented by CapHound. I'm your host, Amar, and my guest today is Malachi McCabe, Senior Director of FinOps Strategy at C4 Technical Services. Malachi has spent 25 years in this field in enterprise IT on the operator side. He's been in the Navy, Marine Corps Internet rollout was his specialty. He cuts his teeth on that. At the same time, largest internal network on Earth, and once led a full disaster recovery of a data center that had literally flooded. Today, he advises enterprises on FinOps strategy, which means he sees inside a lot of organizations at once. And with his 25 years of experience at this point, Malachi, welcome. Welcome to the Decision Layer, man.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me, Amar.
Yeah, sure, man. My first question is that you managed a 13 million multi-cloud budget at Bluestem, right?
Yes, yep, that's correct.
Was there a decision that made you say no? Like, hey, there's evidence, but still the spend decision needs a no. And why did you say no to that?
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. So there wasn't any one specific, there wasn't any one specific moment. So Bluestem's cloud journey started technically in 2011, 2010, 2011, when we started moving away from the Microsoft Office suite over to Google Cloud at the time. That was really kind of their first foray into cloud. So kind of the end user space. At the same time, they started dabbling in AWS, experimenting, running some minor workloads, kind of solving some, I don't know, minor automation problems, and then it just grew from there. There were two major migrations that were done. The first was for a now defunct company called Orchard Brands to basically vacate their data centers. Moved, same story so many other companies have had out there. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of servers, hundreds of workloads, moved everything whole hog into AWS. Massive savings, massive cost reduction, massive simplification of the environment. It was like a great story. It was like the story AWS would love to tell over and over and over again. So that went great. It went swimmingly. I think the first time that that cloud spend really kind of got into the limelight was once we were about 3/4 of the way through that migration. And what's funny is overall the total spend, the TCO of the environment dropped as a result of the migration, but the spend, like the cost of IT, was no longer obfuscated across, dozens, if not hundreds of different invoices, you know what I mean, and multiple budgets. All of a sudden, the bulk of the IT spend comes in one bill every month, and people had sticker shock. They were like, "That's crazy how that cloud is so expensive." And it was such a hard story to tell them that, no, it really isn't if done right, and it's not for us. But they didn't believe it. So I found myself backpedaling, having to then go calculate the cost of the run rate on-prem, so they could show them on paper, like, look, it is cheaper for us to run in this current state in the cloud. And then as we were wrapping that up, Bluestem came along and bought Orchard Brands, so we became an acquisition, and Bluestem was on the very forefront of their cloud migration. So it was fortuitous for me. I was able to step in and help lay the groundwork for that. And I already had kind of this idea of what to expect from their executives, right? Said, oh boy, I went through this with Orchard. I bet their executives are going to have the same questions, the same concerns, the same disbeliefs. So I think the benefit we had during that Bluestem, the initial phase of the Bluestem cloud migration, was that we had that experience and we knew, you know what, we need to start tracking every dollar right now. We need to get this documented. We need to map it out. We had no idea what it was going to cost in cloud yet, but we knew that we needed to get our arms around the cost.
Hmm.
So at that point, yeah, we signed on with, gosh, I think it was CloudHealth at the time,
Okay.
and
Okay.
this was like I don't know, 2015.
Yeah, I
uh,
think it was Cloud Health because in 2014, cloud cost and everything came into play, right? So
yeah,
I
yeah,
think those were the
exactly,
first players.
exactly.
Yeah.
And you know, if FinOps was a word at that time, it was really not. I wouldn't say it was broadly recognized or known. Uh, I think the sharp people in the FinOps world would say, no, we knew all about FinOps at the time. And I believe them, but you know, I had never heard of it at the time. I just knew that I needed to manage the cost differently than I had done before with data
Yes.
centers.
Yes.
So yeah, that was really the. I think that moment there was when I started championing for FinOps formally without knowing it was really called FinOps at the time.
Mm. Mm.
Um, Having those conversations ahead of time, you know, bringing in the finance team. I knew that bringing in finance would help. And that was tough, right? They just saw it as more
Yes.
work. They didn't want to do it, right? Um, so
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
it was
always
definitely a journey.
yeah, it's always because FinOps does not own any budget. It actually works as a reference between finance and engineering team. So you have all that information as a FinOps, but you don't have the authority to govern it. You can just be a liaison, right? So
Correct.
it's a double-edged sword. You have the gift of looking at the spend and going crazy, but you don't have the authority to stop anything. And I think that jumps into my other question is that I've seen that you've cut AWS costs for like 30% in 6 months in one of your previous experiences. What was the first thing that just came out as, oh, this is where we can do the savings?
Yeah.
And yeah, what have worked?
Yeah. So two parts to the story. So with just real quick, there's different ways you can save money in cloud, right? But or at least be cost efficient in cloud. Two of those ways. One is just through cleaning up, right? So you go through this huge cloud migration, moving off-prem into cloud. You know, these companies that have been around a really long time. I mean, Orchard, its brands, some of its brands were already over 120 years old at the time. So they had data going back just decades and decades and decades. I mean, they were running servers that were literally not serving anyone. They were just running. And so Orchard saved money by just not moving some systems. They consolidated data, they consolidated systems, right? So it was a huge cleanup effort. Outside of that, though, it was pretty much a lift and shift. So they could have saved even more by going cloud native with more services,
Hmm.
but predominantly it was a cleanup effort. Bluestem, on the other hand, they also had quite a lot of data. They did need to go through some amount of cleanup, but it was a much more regimented, much more planned out cloud migration. Um, and they ended up making the decision to do a lift and shift migration, which in theory is the fastest, can be the fastest way to cloud, especially if you're trying to wholly exit a data center on a timeline, but it can also be the most expensive way to transition to cloud. So what they had done is, so they kicked off the lift and shift, and like any big project, right? It was a bit behind schedule, but they kicked off that migration, um, got to about 40% of the way, maybe 50%, and we started having conversations about, boy, we are way off on the spend trajectory here. And what had happened was that we were banking on cost estimates that AWS had provided. Um, you know, they had done, you know, they did a whole TCO analysis, they did a whole pre-migration assessment, kind of did a review of all of our workloads, And really what they do, and all the providers do this, they give you a spreadsheet and it's got all of your systems, all of your servers, all of your workloads, um, the size of those workloads, and then roughly what they're going to cost in cloud. And what happened is they had assumed in the spreadsheet, and this is really a warning for anyone else who hasn't yet done their migration. I think most people have by this point, but some may not. Um, the spreadsheet had some assumptions baked in that weren't discussed, right? They weren't said aloud and
Yeah.
really weren't in writing. And what happened is there was a percentage of the workloads, the non-prod workloads, that AWS just assumed that we were only going to run for 8 hours a day, maybe not on weekends, right? And it was a huge chunk. And so these non-prod systems were far less costly than reality. We were running them 24/7. And many of them we needed to. So long and short of it was we were over budget before we were even done moving all of our non-prod workloads in this lift and shift mode. So at that point, we rallied, myself and our leadership team, and we're like, okay, we need to really bring a FinOps lens on this thing and start making some real decisions and getting the troops behind it and making some changes in not only how we're migrating, but how we're governing the environment that's up there. And so the result, though, was that, so let me think of the best way to explain this. When we were at roughly the 50% mark, we formally started the FinOps program for Bluestem. The cost through the rest of the migration, the remaining 50% of the workloads that needed to be migrated, if we hadn't have done that, then the cost would have continued to grow. But because of that FinOps, that very intentional program kickoff, instead of being an incline, it actually flattened out and even dropped. So by the end of the migration, we were not only within budget, we were under budget. We were actually under plan by the end of the migration. So that's pretty
That's
impressive. I mean, 50% of the workloads migrated cost X, and then the remaining 50% of the workloads were migrated without increasing cost because we were reducing spend so much on the first half that we had moved. So it was a pretty tremendous impact for Bluestem, and definitely some big lessons learned for me.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's great, man. And the thing is, this is a couple of years ago, right? And you were talking about people have like spreadsheets. How many of the companies right now still are using spreadsheets, right? Where these kind of assumptions are baked in,
Yeah,
right? So
all of them.
yeah. So that's where I think there needs to be some kind of automation in this AI world
Yeah.
right now, where you need, okay, you don't need to have spreadsheets anymore, guys. These kind of assumptions that were baked into spreadsheets actually does not end up as good as you just said, right? So yeah, that was my take. Like I just when you said spreadsheet, I'm like, oh, okay, those are assumptions baked into it. What would you have done differently, known what you've known now, in
Mm,
that scenario? Like from the start, doing something different.
boy, yeah. So let's see. So I think a few things. One is obviously hindsight being 2020. Probably gone back and vetted that that spreadsheet a bit more. Although I mean, look, we didn't know what we didn't know at the time,
Yes.
but yeah, I think that's definitely a for sure. Also, though, I think look, I hate to lean too heavily on tools, but I feel like if we had a better tool that could see across both on-prem and cloud at the time, um, to help us track the on-prem spend as we moved those workloads to cloud, I think that could have helped quite a bit. But at the time, there were really only a handful of tools that did that sort of thing, and even
Yeah.
they were very young. They didn't have all the
Yeah.
features we needed. They were clunky. We were always in the tooling we did have. We were always at odds with the security team. because they had to, we had to load agents and scan environments and whole subnets, and you know, it was yeah. So I think better tooling certainly could have helped. But really, I mean, I think some of it was just the nature of the time at which we moved those workloads. I mean, we did all the right things. We sent teams to training multiple times. I mean, I don't know, I took what, 50, 60 people through AWS architect training, through, all sorts of training, through Terraform training. I think we did 2 rounds of Terraform training. I mean, we did all the training you can think of. We did all the hearts and minds. We did all the culture change management. We did all the things. But at the end of the day, you can't, nothing's perfect. So,
Yes, nothing's perfect.
yeah.
Yes. Anything that teaches you in tech world is like projects will get a little late. You will learn a few things every time. Doesn't matter. You have 10 years of 20 years of experience of doing this. Every single project is different, and it will take some learnings, to finish those.
Yeah,
Um,
100%.
yeah. And you've built like cloud infrastructure. You build like FinOps um, for cloud infrastructure. What breaks when you actually point that compass to AI infrastructure, the AI usage?
Yeah. So can you? Well, let me. Can you
So basically, when
clarify a little
let's
bit?
say,
Yeah.
yeah, so basically you're saying like, okay, FinOps practice, this is what needs to happen for cloud infrastructure, right? We have that
Oh,
in set,
sure.
everything, right? But when we are pointing that compass on AI, what
Yeah.
is the difference? What is that needed that we still need, right, to add
Yeah.
into that infrastructure or something totally new? What do you
Yeah,
think?
for sure. I mean, I think one of the nice things, well, there's a few things, right? So with cloud infrastructure, I mean, there are challenges. There were definitely challenges in going to cloud for really every company, right? Especially if you're doing infrastructure as code, right? Your infra folks have to learn these core tenets of, code management. They have to write code. They have to deal with software repositories. So there's a learning curve for them. But that that information, like, learning how to do that, it isn't new knowledge. It's just new knowledge for that group, right? We've been we've had software developers since software existed, right? I mean, there's
Yeah.
decades of knowledge here.
Mhm.
It just, you had to teach a new group.
Yes.
So problem one with AI is the patterns are so new, right? I mean, it's it's not just software management. It's not just license management. It's usage management, and in some cases, depending on how you're using AI, it can be obfuscated a bit, right?
Yes.
There's also different types of AI, right? I mean, are we deploying an LLM? Are we deploying agents, right? Like agentic AI? Are we, what does the workload look like? And so the answer to each of those plays into how you're going to track and ultimately manage the spend for those. And then layer on top of that, the pace of change right now in that industry for the big AI providers and SaaS providers is wildly high.
Yes. Because
Just
they're new too, right? Because
yeah,
they're new too, and every 6 months a new model comes up, cost increases or decreases, right? For example, right now Mark Zuckerberg just said that he's going to open source a couple of models that they have, with I think a billion context. That's what they were talking
that's
about.
right. Yeah.
And yeah, so basically things are changing so rapidly. They're so right now hard to measure. For example, what's the business value that's driving a particular project from 50,000 to freaking 100,000, right? So that is where the model routing or the AI understanding of the infrastructure comes into play. I think we talked that a little bit offline as well. I think last week where we were
We did.
talking about, hey, right? This is how do you measure a POC, for example? How much this is going to cost us, and no one knows except, hey, I'm going to run this, and I don't know. I think right now an answer is basically okay. Run it in a containerized form where you are just running certain parameters, like I'm going to just do this, and then from there measure if the model remains the same, pricing remains the same, it's going to cost this much, because you can say that with evidence. But other than that, right now, it's very hard to actually see the business spend on one of the applications. So I totally get it. It is so new that even software developers, even architects are trying to understand the continuous changing world of AI. So yeah, man, I'm totally with you. There needs to be certain training that needs to happen for everybody.
Absolutely.
I think,
Yeah,
yeah,
I think another aspect too that makes it challenging is just, we've all heard the term shadow IT, and I don't want to overstate that term, but I mean, AI is so accessible today, right? I mean, shadow IT long ago meant you needed to install software somewhere, right? And then with cloud, right, somebody could pull out their credit card and go create an Amazon or Azure account and go start running workloads. Plumbing that up to your environment might take some hurdles, and maybe that's where it finally pops up on the radar for your organization. Like, oh my gosh, the data analytics team has been running, jobs in Snowflake. We had no idea, right? Um, but I think with I mean, it literally is as simple as opening a browser, right?
yes,
Going to Claude.ai or going to, whatever, right? Whatever your AI du jour is. Or
yes,
even people running things on their local machines now. We've got laptops coming out with AI ready chips so that you can, run
yeah,
loads locally on your machine to greater effect. So I think
yes.
it's so accessible, and keeping a control over that can also be challenged.
Yes, it is so accessible. That is the security concern, because somebody can actually put your company's personal information on their private Claude or ChatGPT to actually ask questions about, hey, how do I solve this problem? And then they have the data. Um, in terms of intra-organization, I think it's you need a high-level view of all the teams, all the AI spend or the software spend, different things that people are using, in order for them to have a complete view. Hey, this is where the things are hiding. We didn't know that legal team is actually, um, right now using ChatGPT or
Right.
Codex. So that kind of view we needed to know. Because what kind of model? Otherwise, it's okay. You can security can actually pretty much control the internet. It's intranet. It's just that the personal accounts are right now are being used for company information. So that's kind of my concern as well.
Yeah.
And I think that, yeah.
Well, I was going to say,
Go
I'd
ahead.
offer up one more avenue as well. And it's not just security, right? I mean, it's the spend as well. Like, what happens is you get, with shadow IT, there is a security concern for sure. But like from a spend perspective, I mean, look, anyone listening to this who's been doing this a while, like they've all lived through this, right? Like you've got a department in your org who started using a tool, and then it becomes part of their production workflow, whatever it is, right?
Yes.
And then suddenly the bill comes due and it comes to light, and you know IT, whoever traditionally owns the budget, says, well, that's not only is that wrong, like we don't,
Hmm.
I that's not in my budget, I can't cover that. But then this other department leader says, yeah, but this is now a critical workload for the organization. Like you got to
Yeah.
figure it out.
It's
So
in
now
the
all of a
code.
sudden you've got to manage that. You got to have to accommodate the spend. You've got to own it next year. Well, and then you got to budget for it. You've got to control it. You've got to then, after the fact, start having conversation. Well, is this even the right tool? Like this is what they landed on, but are there better tools? Are there more cost-effective tools? How do we measure it? How do we track it? All those things. Um, AI baked into software now, right? I mean, even creative teams, right? Like marketing
Yep.
teams, right? The
Oh,
Adobe
yes.
suite loaded with AI, right? And I
Yep.
think
Yep.
Photoshop, for example,
Yes.
uses credits, So who's
Yes.
to
Yes.
say the creative leader is
Yes.
not, breaking out the platinum card to go purchase credits for the team, right? That'll come to
Yeah,
light.
it's
And,
yeah, that's the usage-based subscription that we are moving towards as
right,
AI is
right,
progressing, right?
right.
Yeah, yeah, you're absolutely right on that. And
So yeah.
Yeah, the thing is that I've been talking to different enterprises and people on higher ups, and they're talking about, I don't even know who owns this budget. I need to talk to 10 different companies, 10 different teams, in order for me to actually gather them together and say, hey, what are you guys spending on a particular AI stuff or particular SaaS software? So there's no direct owner right now, and there's not even a consolidated view. Everybody has their own spreadsheet or have their own thing going on. And I think by the time it reaches CFO, by the time it reaches the business, it's already out of hand because they are not getting one view. They're getting 12 different teams spending their 12, 13, 14 tools each dev's using or each person is using. So I think that's where the spend is hiding. What do you think? Where do you think that enterprises needs to change where, hey, where's your spend right now is hidden for AI or for SaaS or anything in your company? What do you think companies should do differently?
Yeah, I think, I think probably have a near-term plan. Don't chase perfect, right? I mean, this AI, I hate to use the term, but this AI revolution that we're quickly not walking into, but running into,
Yeah.
it's changing so fast and evolving so quickly. I think that it's very similar to cloud migrations of the early 2000s, 2010s, in that it is going to be a culture change for your organization, not just in what tools you use and how you use them and how they impact your company, but how you manage them, how you manage the security of them and the cost. In many cases already, it's very different from what we're used to. I can't go into details, but one organization I'm working with is trying to wrap their heads around GitHub Copilot, right? And what that means to manage. I mean, the Microsoft has already changed the rules, I think, probably 3 times in the last three
Yes.
months, right?
Yes.
All for the better, I think, but those are changes that come on very rapidly, and large organizations are going to have a very difficult time um, even beginning to wrap their arms around that if they chase perfect. So they need to come up with an MVP type approach so that they can still adopt the technology and take advantage of it to stay competitive, but to stem the flow of cash, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and then they can improve on it over time, right? I
Yes.
think I think some of these things are going to normalize a bit, but we are a little bit in the wild, wild west right now. So I think it's just a high
Yeah.
rate of flux, a high rate of change with features and licensing and how all that stuff works and the ease of accessibility and yeah. So I think train your teams, train your leaders, set expectations, put processes in place to at least try and catch the costs
Yes.
before they run away. Maybe pull together a team of folks who are interested enough and capable enough that they can detect these things and maybe go, prepare them so that they can go have conversations with people who are consuming the products and then start to put controls in place to allow adoption, again, while also starting to get controls around it so you're secure and you're not bleeding cash.
Yes. I think the companies, the industry didn't even have the time to actually put any control in place because the AI revolution is so fast. I think we are jumping from information age to AI information age. AI is just going
Yeah,
crazy at this point.
agreed.
And I think when we were just not alive, but when industrialization happened, right, it was also rapid. Different countries adopted it in different speeds, and there were wars because there's revolution bring on new technology that other countries didn't have, right? So I think AI is doing the same thing right now. Everybody's in a stretch where you need to make advancement so your business survives, and the controls needs to get through that internal politics where that is a slow process. So right now companies are bleeding, but some of them have started actually to put control back into their strategies. But I think the CEOs, the founders of whoever is in control of those companies, if they are not aware of what AI is and how to do this, it's very hard to put controls over. Certain companies right now are putting like, okay, a couple of $1,000s on developers. That's it. That's the monthly budget, and you need to work with it. Learn how you can, optimize your prompts, how you can write skills, how you can make sure that you're not waking up those sub agents sprawl that actually costs you more. So I think right now the newer tech companies are doing that, but it's very hard for like older multi-thousand employee company to do this in quickly. So that's where the problem lies in my view. It's just going to take time, but by that time, company's going to bleed money. Even right now, for example, and I want to get your take on it as well. Companies are rapidly buying Copilot, Cursor, ChatGPT seats. Every company bought them fast. Who's checking like whether they're even used, right? For example, your 7,000 developers have bought whatever Cursor, and 3 of them are not using it or whatever. So what do you think? Have you encountered that problem? Like, okay, they don't even.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I think so. A couple things. One, yeah, that's definitely a problem everywhere. I think though, it's also a byproduct of I've talked to a number of executives and read and seen a number of interviews with executives, and so many of them out there are just concerned with adoption rates, right? So, I get it, right? Like, I think the problem is they know we need to do AI, right, to stay competitive, but they don't yet know how they're going to leverage AI and how it's going to make them more competitive. It kind of goes back to old people like me who went through the cloud migration, or even the virtualization revolution before that, right? When we went to virtualized servers. Everyone knew we needed to do the things and they rushed to do it, but they didn't know what the outcome was going to be. There was just a mad scramble. So I think with AI, I keep hearing people say things like, oh yeah, we need to get our adoption rate up, which in my mind can really, it's kind of synonymous with a lift and shift cloud migration, right? Let's just get everything up there and then we'll go tune and clean it up. Like, okay, great. Makes sense in a lot of cases, like get up there and get moving, but it's really expensive. That is the most expensive way to go. And then,
Yes.
I mean, we saw examples early this year. There were articles, I can't remember who, I think was it Meta that coined token maxing, right?
Oh,
So
yeah.
they chased adoption so hard for AI code generation and code assistance that their devs started creating leaderboards for who was using it the most,
Yes.
right? Like who's
Yes.
using the most
Yes.
tokens, and it was token maxing, and they encouraged it. Well, then the bill came due, and I think I can't remember which one, but one of them, I think they hit their AI budget like 3 months into the year,
Yeah.
into their
That's
fiscal year.
Uber. That's
It
Uber.
was Uber, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Uber
So
CEO said that. Yeah.
yeah, so I mean, I would be curious now, right? Several months on, like, okay, what have you done? And now, are you measuring value? And how are you measuring value? Because I think that
Yes.
ultimately is where we need to get to, and that's what executives should be thinking about. Have a
Yes.
strategy, have an AI strategy. Don't just focus on adoption. You will get there, right? But have goals in mind. Like, what is it that you want to accomplish with AI? And then find a way to measure it. Like, is it working? If it's if you want adoption, well, my question would be, all right, well, is it benefiting your developers,
Hmm.
right? How do you measure
Yes.
that? Like, find a way to measure it, and then, yeah, iterate that way.
Yes, you're absolutely right. But on the other scale of that is basically people who started like, okay, we need to have maximum adoption right now. Go token maxing. Give your developers all the seats, all the softwares like Copilot, right? And then when the bill comes due, they freak out, and then the
Right.
reflex is a blanket cap.
That's
Freeze the
exactly
model,
right.
cap
Yeah.
the seats, right? So, in your view, does that even work in spending and controlling the spend?
No, not really. I mean, it will. Yeah. Well, okay. It can limit your spend, but again, it goes back to like, why are you doing it? Like, if you're going to cap it, well, then what's the point of even doing it? Like, are you even achieving what you wanted to achieve? Are you ever going to at this point? How will you know? So I think that, look, good managing AI usage is really, to me, it's very similar to good like software license management hygiene, right? It's the same thing. It's
Yes.
just done differently and it's measured differently. And I think it can be hard to measure in some cases, depending on the platform you're using. But yeah, I mean, capping it is, you're, I mean, they I would say that executives who were chasing adoption and then make the decision to cap it because they get sticker shock, they need to pause and reflect on why they said focus on adoption in the first place, right? Like where were you going with it? Like you had something in mind. Go back to that, figure out what that is, and then measure from there.
Yeah,
Um,
apply controls from the beginning, right? Like, okay, this
yeah,
is what my goal was. Let's go
right.
back and see, okay, I need to control because if you just do a blanket cap, what's the solution in that? Are you just gonna not use AI, right? Because you just capped it for like what, 2 months? You're gonna be behind. And the other problem right now that is, as you were saying before, it is so accessible that I was talking to a person with like a 10,000 employees, and he was saying, couple of my employees, like a couple of thousand of my employees, are using their Chat GPT, and they are actually using their personal accounts and then billing the company back, which we don't even have control over. And the only way to actually solve that is actually give them enterprise seats
That's right.
and then put controls over it so that you can actually see what they are actually prompting. So that's where the blanket cap versus control comes into play, right? Like have them use, just give them AI. Right now everybody can just pay $20 and have Chat GPT, right? So that never happened. Nobody bought AWS on their phone, right? And then
Right.
just deployed something. So yeah, it's new world, moment. It's new world.
It
Um,
really is. It really is.
yeah, yeah. So basically, I know that you've worked with FinOps, you've been FinOps, right? Do you think FinOps decide any budgets as we talked earlier, or they just report it?
I see FinOps as so people used to ask me like, what do cloud engineers do? And um, I would say FinOps. I would describe FinOps in a similar way. I see FinOps as kind of the whether they have beards or not, but they're kind of the bearded Sherpas, right? They are, as you said, right? They don't own budgets directly. They don't own infrastructure directly. It's funny, they have all the information and no real control, but they are the liaisons. They are the advisors. Uh, they are the ones who go between the teams that don't normally communicate, and if they do, they don't tend to communicate well with one another. They help everyone speak the same language so that the whole organization can follow the same plan. That's kind of how I see them, um, and that's how I think ultimately they help with AI and cloud spend and soon to be you know traditional software license spend as well.
Yep.
Does
Yep.
that answer your question? Did I miss part of it?
No, no, that answers the question because what you're saying is that they're acting as a liaison, not just reporting the bill, but actually looking at the spend in a more high level view so that they can actually provide a better information to the higher ups, right? Hey, this is what 12 teams are spending, so this is what needs to happen. and actually advise the person, right?
Yeah, so I think going back to what I said earlier about, measuring the value of your spend in AI, I think that's a big part of what a good FinOps team can do is they can not just show you the bill, right? They can help it make sense. They can help you
Yes.
understand not only what you're spending money on, but why, right?
Yes.
And the FinOps team doesn't define the why. They work with you to define the why. Like, why is this spend important? Okay, got it.
Yes.
We're going to help you measure that. And so
Yes.
they can help put unit economics in place and really prove empirically that yes, this spend makes sense or it doesn't make sense.
Yes.
So
So
I think that's
that's
the value of the team.
yeah, yeah. They can understand the business value by dollars spent versus what we have accrued, right?
Right.
But they don't even have to understand the AI, how AI works. They just need to look at how what it costs. So that's an important business decision that needs to happen. Um, so right now you've governed people who are spending money, right? Businesses have governed people who are spending money. What about in future where hundreds of agents going to spend money? How will you govern that, right? Every
Yeah.
single company will have agents running internally. So what do
That's
you think is changing and what needs to happen?
yeah, that's
Control
that's
that.
that's a great question. I don't want to say I don't know. I mean, we're going to see what's going to happen. I have some ideas. I just read within the last few days. Um, oh gosh, shoot, the name of the company escapes me, but wallets, right? So wallets for agents are now a thing from very reputable organizations. So I think that that's going to be a change, right? We're not just going to give an agent access to our coffers, directly via Oracle. I think we're going to end up with these smaller pre-funded wallets or buckets of funding for these agents to limit the blast radius or the spend blast, if you will. I think that's definitely going to have to be a thing. Um, but yeah, I think visibility, um, limitations, guardrails, right?
Yeah,
Heavy
yeah,
guardrails, and then automation to validate that those guardrails are not being bypassed. We're constantly reading about how clever AI can be, right? We're waiting for somebody to have the big moment of, oh my gosh, Claude has escaped and is in the wild, right? I don't know if that'll ever actually happen, but I think the fear of that is enough to warrant some very clear controls around what agents can do with your company's cash.
yep, yep. You're absolutely right. Do you think those hundreds of agents who are coming, man, right now? Everybody's developing agents right now, right? Do you think human in the loop is going to be a thing in the past, or we will have human in the loop? Because,
I think we
right?
will
Because,
have,
yeah,
yeah, I think we will have human in the loop. I think it depends on the workload too. Um, I have thoughts about, so for example, you know, we talk about developers, right? There's always talk about, developers in the future won't be a thing. Um, I think they will be to some extent, but just as an example, right? A thought exercise here. When you think about programming languages like Java or C or pick one, any of them, right? Rust, whatever. Um, those languages are created for humans to interact with. They are our interface, right, with the
yes,
the programming world, right? Um, they're designed for us to interact with to make it easy for us to write the software. Um, well, if you'll forgive the metaphor here, I mean, I think of it like a car, right? Car has a steering wheel and has pedals. It's got, mirrors and all these things. We have self-driving cars now, right? And I think what's funny is, today, for the most part, they're retrofitting, all these tests they're doing out, predominantly out west for these self-driving vehicles. They're retrofitting existing vehicles for the most part. So those vehicles still have steering wheels and pedals and all those things. But the reality is an AI does not need those things, right?
Yep.
A robot does not need AI doesn't need a steering wheel. It doesn't need pedals. It doesn't need mirrors, right?
Yep.
It doesn't need those things. Humans do. And so looked at through that lens, a programming language, I mean, I could see a future where AI just bypasses that and just runs.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
you don't even need
binary.
to compile anything. If the back end is powerful enough, it could probably just run this software on the fly without even compiling it, right? So anyway, I think that if that happens, where do you even inject a human into that?
Yeah. So my take on that is basically I've been a software developer, a software architect for the past 10, 15 years. So let's say that you're a business owner, right? You tell me, hey, I need to create an application. This is pre-AI. Hey, I need you to create a front-end UI or a front-end business platform for me to sell. Then that's my job to do that. I will gather requirements, I will gather everything, architect, and then actually at the end start coding once I designed it. And coding is just a way for me to actually design that platform. Right now, AI is the way for me to design that platform. That's it. AI is a way for me to design that platform. It just made my job easier. I'm not using Rust, C Sharp, C or whatever, right? I am using AI to actually do that. But that business owner will not say to an AI, hey, design me this website for 60,000 people. Of course, there's going to be some use cases where, hey, I have a mom and pop shop and I just need a simple website. Go ahead. You don't need a developer. You were not using a developer anyhow before. You were using Wix. You were using WordPress, right? So now you're going to use just Claude or ChatGPT. So I don't think software engineers or architects are going anywhere because you still need to architect. You still need to have those requirements converted into prompts that you need to make that tool useful with, and then design, and then go regression test, evaluation tests of those things that you just covered, and then actually maintain it, right? Even if you do it with AI, you still need to maintain it for a couple of years. I really don't think so that software developers are going anywhere. It's just software developers' job is going to be different. It's just going to be more on, hey, let's design skills.md files. Let's design those things which makes AI better in doing its job and make it learn, new things. I think that's where the thing is going. But I totally agree with you on the thing that you don't even have to code, because AI doesn't have to code, because that's, I think, what Elon Musk is trying to do is you don't even have to write coding language, because that was made for humans to understand what computer is doing. They can simply write binary code. But just think about, how will you actually test that? How will we test a binary code? So it's going to be complete control of AI. So yeah, it's Wild West world, man.
It really is.
It's Wild West world. Yeah.
So, well, that's the spoils go to whoever can, I suppose, either accurately predict how things are going to turn out so they can get ahead of it, or just be able to react fast enough. Right?
Yes.
Which I think is what most leaders I talk to are trying to do, right? That's why they're so focused on adoption. They're like, well, if I get everyone using it, we'll be able to move quickly when we need to move.
Yeah. And I've seen traditional businesses, huge businesses, and I'm not going to name anyone, but I've talked with the VP of a huge business, being nervous because right now with this AI revolution, they cannot do anything more than slapping a chatbot on their existing 30, 40-year-old software. But the newer AI companies are actually eating their lunch right now. So, and I was like, okay, if this guy whose revenue is a couple of $1 billion is right now scared of a man in, whatever remote city doing something that is actually doing the job of his company like 5 times better. That's real revolution that's happening right now. Yeah, we are almost out of time, man. I just want to ask you one last question, and I ask this question to everyone who's my guest. So I want to ask, like, if you become an owner of a company's AI budget tomorrow, what is the first decision that you make?
Yeah, I think the first thing I would decide is to either I establish or whoever is responsible for establishing that we set the actual strategy, like I mentioned before, like what is it specifically that we're trying to accomplish with AI this fiscal year and next fiscal year, and I think that would probably be my focus.
The business case, right? The
Yeah,
business case value of
absolutely. Yeah,
what's
take it
driving.
from
Yep.
big and move it away from the FOMO, the fear of missing out, and focus it on our let's go turn this into action. What are we gonna go execute? That's what I
I
would do.
totally agree. I
Yeah.
totally agree, man. I totally agree. Well, yeah, thanks, Malachi. It's been, I didn't even realize it's been almost an hour talking to you.
Yeah, yeah,
So
it blew
it's
by.
been
This is
fun, man.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Thanks for coming, man. Thanks for being here. I think the viewers going to appreciate what you had to say. So
awesome.
thank
I
you.
sure hope so. Thanks, Amar.